Hello and welcome back to Pixels with Purpose, where the website has customer support, but it's just a useless LLM chatbot. My name is Salma. I'm here with Andreas. We are from Nordcraft, and Pixels with Purpose is sponsored by Nordcraft, the world's first web development engine. Nordcraft combines a visual design tool with a powerful web framework, providing everything you need to craft extraordinary web apps and websites. And that's how we built Nordcraft in Nordcraft. And today, we are joined by Victor Persson, previously the lead designer on Google's material design, and with a bunch of other design-based roles on his resume. He is currently co-founder at Typograph Studio based in Stockholm in Sweden. Welcome, Victor. How are you doing today? And tell us a fun fact about yourself that people might not know.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Fun fact, I'm not sure how fun it is, but I am a reservist in the Swedish Home Guards. I'm not only a designer. I
Fun
also
fact.
I'm not sure how fun it is, but anyway.
Great. Okay, so let's kick off our first official question from Andrea.
So, yes, Victor, and again, thank you for coming on our podcast. I think people will probably mostly know you from your work on Google's material design. So we're not really going to spend too much time on that today, but I think it's always fun to hear a little bit about it because it was such a big and impactful project, right? That inspired so many people and so many different companies, both to straight up just copy the same design, but also to actually create new stuff on top of. So is there any one specific part of that project and that experience of building that stood out to you?
I think I was just to clarify, I was one of a few lead designers on the project, so I just don't want to step on their toes. It was quite a large project, but I think for me, it was probably two things. As with any sort of startup story, because it sort of was a startup within Google, was the beginning when we were just a couple of people crammed into a small room trying to make this big impact and change at the company. At that moment in time, I cherish a lot because it was a lot of fun. And I think with any sort of startup stories, like when you're in that little room and you have big dreams and big plans, but they haven't materialized yet, it's sort of a magic moment, in my opinion. And then, of course, I think the second thing would be when we got to go up on stage on Google I/O and present our work to the world and world media and in front of thousands of people. That was kind of a special moment as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. And thousands is probably lowballing a bit, isn't it?
I don't know the exact number, but there were thousands.
So, that aside, you're now building Typograph Studio with one of our former podcast guests, David Prentel. And so tell us a little bit about what Typograph Studio is, and most importantly, why does it exist?
Okay, so the simple answer to the first question is that it's like type design copilot, targeted or built for designers mostly, to help them create custom typography for their clients much, much quicker. That's basically the gist of it. And why does it exist? Well, me and David, we started the design studio, GW Studios, and we have worked on visual identities and branding for many years now. And most of our designers that we have are super talented graphic designers, but none of them are really creating typography at our studio. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is quite complicated. You have to draw a lot of things, and it takes a long time. It's also quite technically complicated to get everything right. And the second one is that our clients are not always inclined to pay for custom typography. specifically because it takes a long time and it is quite complicated, so that the cost is quite high. So those are the two things that we addressed or wanted to address with building a tool for ourselves that we always wished we had. So essentially, we built this to enable ourselves to create more custom typography ourselves within the budgets that our clients are comfortable with, and also within a time frame that makes sense for us.
Follow-up question. Why is custom typography important? Why is it what does it do for a brand, and why would people want it yet not be willing to pay for it?
So let's start with the first question. I think, as with anything visual, sort of communication-wise, you communicate, right? And I think communicating deliberately, with purpose, with a strategy, is what we provide for our clients. If you look at what the end sort of consumer of all this stuff sees, it's almost the majority is typography, right? And it carries a lot of emotional communication. The way that it's drawn, the way that it's sort of what it says about you. The message is the medium, or the medium is the message, whatever, maybe the other way around. And I think typography is really, really that. You can say a lot by what kind of typography you use and how you use it. Creating custom typography is a way for us to really distill our sort of brand vision into the typeface itself. And also in the modern world where, I think our studio, we try to really bring the brand into product as well. So we sort of live in this between the product world, the digital product world, and the branding side of things. And we try to bring this into the product and try to bring this sort of brand experience and the visual communication into the product without creating an experience that is in the way of the user. And I think a bespoke typeface for your brand that is also functional could be definitely a way to do that.
So how do you bring a whole brand identity into a typeface? Because I am not that experienced in this area, so I know that if I put serifs on it, it means I'm classy and sophisticated, and if it's sans serifs, then I'm modern and hip, and that's about as far as and never use Comic Sans, right? That's kind of the three things I know about typography.
Yeah.
So what does it mean? What is that process of figuring out how a font fits a company, or what kind of font fits their branding? What kind of thoughts goes into that?
I think it's hard to answer that question with just one thing. I think it's like anything else, design, it depends a lot. But also it is a communication system, ultimately, the letters, the glyphs, the alphabet. So you can't really mess with that too much, because then you can't really read it anymore, right? And then you also have to consider what is it going to use for in which context. So but I think what we try to do is create a sort of visual system, and then we try to bring out the essence of maybe graphical representations of that, and try to find ways to fit that into the typeface as well. So maybe there could be a couple of shapes that we maybe derive from the logo, then we then extrapolate out over the typeface. And that's one way of doing it. I think there's many other ways of doing it. And I think each typeface communicates something on its own. And I think there's a lot more variation than we think in the subtleties, right? But there's subtle changes, right? There's not always the difference between Comic Sans and Helvetica, right? There's so many more things that you can do with it. But yeah, I don't think there's like a one answer, one ring to rule them all for this question. I think it's very much down to the designer working on it and trying to find that sort of expression, that feeling that typography can bring out.
So not something that always directly translates into words or a specific, this is what I'm trying to say, therefore I need to do this.
No, I don't think in design very few things are that straightforward. So that's why, yeah.
When you were talking about that, it kind of reminded me a lot of music and approach to creating music. So in the past, when I've been working with designers and I've been presented with a typography system, it usually consists of X number of predetermined configurations of font sizes and line heights and font weights to use across the platform as you're building out the digital product. But with something like music, there are a certain number of like hard and fast rules that when you follow those rules, the end product will generally be pleasing to the ear. But on the flip side, when you know those rules and when you start to break them to create like different and specific effects and emotions, that's when like things can really stand out and the art form can like be really expressive. So on that note that you were talking about, that it's hard to define, like, are there though like specific rules that you should follow? Obviously it needs to be readable, whatever that means. But are there like rules that like solidify this is a great typography system, but then you can start breaking them to create more visually creative and appealing results and that make a brand more memorable, for example?
Yeah, good question. I'd say yes and no. I think there are obviously some well-established patterns and ways to do things that work. I think if we think of typography in particular, I think looking at the sort of Swiss grid system is a good way to start. And then also, I mean, with type scale and stuff like that, we often use the golden ratio to define the differences between sizes and stuff like that. But so I think that's a good place to start to get something good. But other than that, I try to not talk too much about rules. And I think the interesting things come, as you say, when you break rules. So I don't think there's, anything really more to that than that. I mean, practice. I think it comes with practice. And the only way to do that is to just design a lot of things. And maybe start from those foundations that I mentioned, but I think there's many other ways to do it as well.
Makes sense. So you mentioned a little bit like typography being the majority of most of the stuff we do, right? Most of the websites, the point is kind of you have to read them, right? So it's like it is the central part. So that's obviously one aspect, but is there more to why typography being the next thing? Because I would imagine that especially after Google, but also after your success with Grafikverket, you could kind of jump onto. I would imagine you had opportunities. So you could have gone figured out, where do I want to go? What do I want to work on? So why did you choose typography? This, I assume, is going to be a project that's going to take up a couple of years of your life, most likely, right? So it is an investment, right?
Yeah, definitely an investment. I think, I mean, yes, I've had opportunities and I've actually taken some of them. So I had a startup in New York for a couple of years. We sold that company earlier this year. I've been the head of design of a couple of other startups here in Stockholm. And but basically, if we sold that company to this year, we started. Anyway, I had an opportunity to start something new. And I wanted to sort of get closer back into the GW studio world. And we've talked for a long time about investing in ourselves, building something on our own. A lot of the partners at GW Studios, we do have sort of a technical background, not necessarily technical in writing the code ourselves. We have worked in the tech industry, both by starting startups, and I've obviously been at Google and other things. So we do have quite a lot of expertise in-house to how would we go about building something. So I think this moment in time is particularly interesting where smaller teams can have quite a lot of impact. And we can build things much quicker than we could before with the help of technology. So we basically I think we just looked at what tools were out there, what we were missing from our sort of toolbox. And we thought that this was a field where we saw a real problem and need from our side. And also a lot hasn't been done yet in this field. So we felt like it was an area of opportunity and also an area of interest, of course, for all of us. So I think there's nothing harder than that. And now I, of course, is very passionate about typography. So
I think that's
it's a fun thing to work on.
I mean, we're very into that. I started Nordcraft because I wanted a tool for myself, right? And then people joined because they saw the same thing and saying, okay, I actually also want to use this tool, right? And then we're mostly just building it for ourselves. And then if other people have value, that's great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a good approach generally. So obviously this is the Typograph Studio is a whole new, studio, I suppose, editor app. What actually is it?
Yeah, as I said, it's a co-pilot for designing typography. The easiest way to describe it would be that the tool will get you about 90% of the way to where you want to be, and then you will have to do the remaining 10% yourself. Or you could also describe it as like it will generate a foundational typeface, roughly where you want to end up. And then you apply your own sort of design brain to this and start redrawing things and edit glyphs and changing it the way you want it. And that process can be long or short, depending on, what it is that you want to do. And then it will create quality, production-ready typeface files for you. So there's a lot of things that you don't really have to worry about that we take care of. A lot of technical stuff. You don't have to worry too much about if the vector nodes are exactly on a pixel or not. You don't have to worry too much about the hinting. You don't have to worry too much about all these like technical stuff about typography. And what you need to do is more apply your vision and your idea for the aesthetics of it and what you wanted to communicate and how you want it to look like.
Spicy question incoming. There are so many fonts out there, many with variable configurations, variable fonts. You can customize them to your liking. And what about all of these poor, struggling typography designers? Are we just putting them out of a job?
No, I don't think so. I think they bring something to this equation that we cannot. I think there's always going to be need for people that do this completely from scratch. Also, they are more than welcome to use Typograph to maybe improve their margins and shorten the lead time for certain projects. I think Typograph is more about making it easier to get going and not reinvent the wheel every time. I think the future is going to be hard for some of these professions that are very that a large portion of what they do is production. I think that is true for graphic designers as well. But I think the ones that are going to come out of this successful are the ones that embrace the future and the new tools that are out there. To be able to. I think the ones that are curious about the future, the ones that are willing to adapt, are the ones that are going to survive. And I don't think Typograph is the one that is going to end all of this, but I think there's a whole wave of technology that's going to come over the next couple of years that, as I said, production-heavy roles right now are going to have to adapt.
Honestly, this might sound contrived, but I have always wanted to make fonts, like to make my own font, and I never looked into it because I understand there are going to be so many technical complexities, so many things that I'd have to learn, and obviously that's fine, learning, but I would have spent months, years on learning how to do it. And honestly, it does appeal to me, the concept of typograph, in that, like you said, it gets you like 90% of the way, and then you can work on it and make it perfect from a human perspective. I think that's a nice way to describe it, and it does attract me, and it makes me think, oh, maybe I can make my own font now, because all of the
yes, you can.
boring stuff has been taken care of for me. So as someone who's not a designer but who appreciates design and doesn't always have the budget for a designer, I'd feel like that would elevate my offering on the World Wide Web to have something more unique. And at the moment, I'm using no fonts because I was on a power trip of how fast can my website actually load with nothing. So I'm just using the default stuff, and it doesn't give me the design flair that I want. So maybe this is something interesting for me.
Yeah, I think there is a use case for developers out there for sure. We've had a few that have reached out and expressed interest in this. As you said, they want to make something unique for maybe their app or whatever they're building. And typography can be quite expensive, and maybe not something that is in their budget. And something like Typograph could solve that for them, for sure.
So I kind of still want to dive into a little bit of the how it actually, like, so you have the whole Copilot for designing that gets you 80%. Do you then take that into like a vector drawing or another type studio, or can you like build the whole thing in Typograph?
So how it works basically is that we aim to build something that was AI generated from scratch. We quickly realized that the models out there today don't really handle SVG data very well. Another thing that is sort of built into how they work is that they never really do the same thing over and over again with consistency, right? They sort of hallucinate a new thing all the time, which makes stylistic consistency over 300 different vector shapes a hard thing to do. I don't think this is going to, at some point we're going to be able to get there. But what this tool does is that it combines current technologies that are out there. So you mentioned variable fonts. We have sort of something similar. It's not variable font. But we built our own software that can generate a wide variety of for now, sans serifs. We're doing serifs probably next year. And then we have, then we connect that to what AI is good at, understanding natural language, maybe analyzing patterns, those kinds of things, to combine these two into a tool that you can use. And that is how it works now. And of course, the thing about Typograph too is that to get AI to really work, to train our own models in this, which we haven't done yet, you have to have enormous amount of data. And being part of this community, we didn't want to go down the route of just scraping the internet, stealing other people's work, and profit off that, right? So we decided that we have to do this the hard way. And so I've basically spent almost a year and a half just drawing typography every day to create all of this data myself, which has been an interesting time, for sure. But we thought it was necessary that nothing in this tool is stolen from anywhere else. So it's basically typography that we have created that we've then put into the tool that then get mixed up in all this technology and spits out something somewhat unique for you that you can then redraw. Another aspect of the reason why we did this is because the only way to get that kind of data would be to take open source typefaces out there and then train something on that. But then you have sort of a legal problem where open source typefaces are under an open source license, which means that everything that is created from this typeface that is under this open source license will also be under open source license. That is not necessarily an issue all the time, but for a tool like us, and what we, one of the selling points for Typograph is that whatever you create in Typograph, you own. So you can sell it, you can use it the way you want, you actually own it, right? So a lot of our clients want that IP right. They don't want something that anyone else can use in any other way, right? So that is one of the selling points for us, that you actually own the product. So that is also impossible with open source typefaces. I sort of lost my train of thought there a little bit.
Did you consider just ignoring that fact until you had enough money and then try and figure it out? Because that seems to be the default approach to open source, is just don't think about it.
Yeah, I think, hopefully Typograph will become so successful that the people that sign up and use Typograph have created many, many, many typefaces with the tool. And of course, the deal with Typograph, you use Typograph, is that we have the right to train AI models on the typefaces that you create with the tool. So it's a more transparent way of like, okay, we need the data. Here, we provide a tool that has value to you. This is the transaction between us, right? So it's transparent from the get-go.
If I had my applause button, I would have pressed it many times. Very commendable for you to take this approach and to not scrape the web and to not steal stuff. I think that that should be the headline of the podcast, because there aren't many people operating in the ethical way that you are.
Thank you.
So thank you on behalf of the web community.
Well, thank you. I think it's necessary though in this field. I think the community that we're part of are sensitive to this and appreciate this. So I think even if we wanted to do it another way, I don't think it would have been the right way for the business.
No, I think that's probably true, especially if you're selling to type foundries.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
I think with some rights, they're worried about this, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable concern. So I like that approach. I think it makes a ton of sense. How do I get this and start using it?
Well, so for now, you can sign up for early access. We're still building it. It's not fully done yet. But if you sign up now, you will get it earlier than the rest of the world. Sometime before the end of this year.
Excellent.
And you can go into typograph.studio and you can sign up there.
Excellent. I'm excited to actually have a look at this to see what potential unlocked design is in me regarding typefaces. We're on to our last question now until I ask Andreas for his final thoughts. So do be prepared. Victor, what is something that you wish everyone knew about typography?
Oh, that's a good one. I think a lot of people are a little afraid of typography.
Agree.
It seems like this sort of nebulous thing that is you'd rather stay away from if you can, sort of thing. And I think what I want people to know is that you shouldn't. It is not that scary. It is not this nebulous, scary thing that is impossible to understand. And I think maybe Typograph is a good stepping stone into starting to get into this world of typography, because I think it's valuable for people to go all the way and understand everything and really learn the craft. But I think the entry point is kind of steep, and hopefully Typograph can get you excited about it and make you less afraid to dive in.
In 10 years, is everyone using their own custom typefaces?
Yes.
I have no idea. But... Let's go.
I think for the viewers just listening, they didn't see the little head shake ahead of the time, indicating that was maybe more of a random answer.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Only custom typefaces from now on will be accepted into production.
Yeah. No,
I don't
know.
It's always safe to make 10-year predictions, right? None of us is famous enough, at least I'm not, that people are going to dig back 10 years to figure out what I said. So I just make crazy predictions. Nobody's gonna hold it to you as long as it's far enough in the future, right?
Yeah.
In 10
But
years,
if you win,
I think I just want to add one more thing about this whole discussion, which is to push the founders maybe a little bit, because I think there is an element to this throughout the process of building this, where we realize that people are generally pretty frustrated with the licensing structure of most typefaces. It's annoying. It's hard to keep track of. It feels arbitrary. And I think something like Typograph, the success we may or may not have, I think it's because we're not doing licenses. And any type founders listening out there, like, yeah, you should probably look at this because people are not happy.
No, I think that's probably fair. I think it's one thing I looked in a few times in different projects at custom, like adding a custom font, right? And I think a lot of times the biggest issue is that I just want to know what the price is. And it's, it's kind of here, but also maybe you'll have a few more. And then when your font is something where you have to start worry about how many places you've used it after you bought it, it adds headache, right? Yeah. So yeah, very much.
And then there's a different license if you want to use it on merchandise, and a different one if you want to beam it into the sky. I mean, the black hole is endless. And on that note, this podcast is not endless. So we're going to wrap up now and say thank you to Victor. Victor, where can people find you on the internet to keep up with the typography studio journey?
Oh, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I think that's the best space, probably. We also have an Instagram page, but you can find all that on our website, typograph.studio.
Typograph.studio. Remember that. Great job.
Description.
Link in the description.
Your video, or
don't forget to like and subscribe, etc. Right, so we are finished with this episode. Andreas, do you have any final words today?
I think I would just encourage people to go and be clear about the typography you're using. Go and explore. It is an interesting world, and there's so many options already. Some of them can be customized, and with Typograph, when that hits the shelves of the internet, even more opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to playing with it and to figuring out how much we can do to lift our websites and application experiences.
Me too. Good final thought. Well done for a change. All right, that's it for this episode of Pixels with Purpose, and we'll see you next time on this strange podcast. Goodbye.